The race for second gets more and more interesting, I feel like, with each race between Ferrari, Mercedes, and Aston. Laurence, who do you feel like this track suits the most? Because we've seen moments of brilliance from these three teams. We've also seen a lot of inconsistencies as well.
Yeah, that's it. And it does, again, vary track to track and how a car suits a certain circuit. So I know Aston Martin are a bit more confident about their car in Hungary compared to how it was in both Austria and Silverstone, to be honest. They all of a sudden, after this great start to the season, just didn't look like they were in the hunt for podiums anymore. And that kind of was a bit surprising at those two races. But they're pretty confident that they actually made a pretty good step with the new floor that they brought to Canada. And it's just a question of, at the right track or tracks that maybe don't suit their rivals quite so much, that's going to shine through. So I think Aston Martin should be up there. If they're not, again, it's, they're learning about that car, and that will probably ring a few alarm bells if they're not towards the front of that pack this weekend. Similar thing for Ferrari. I think, they brought an upgrade in Spain, and there were signs of promise in Canada as well. And there's been signs of promise along the way, but we just know with Ferrari, inconsistency is a real issue. And Fred Vasseur, the team principal, was talking about this after Silverstone and whether they need an update package, because we have seen so often that the likes of McLaren bring an update, or Mercedes, and it makes a big difference, and it all gets talked about and we all praise them. But he said actually there's a lot of potential just in the car that we're not really extracting. So he seems to think that they can probably find as much performance, if not more, just from getting the setup absolutely right going into a weekend, rather than adding a whole new part of kind of bodywork to the car, or trying to improve the downforce, and then facing more setup issues along the way. So there's definitely a balance to be found between just having the drivers comfortable in it, confident in it, getting the car into a really drivable place where they can extract the performance, as opposed to just launching upgrades at it. The other team that might be in the mix, Alpine, maybe. They've gone a bit quiet as well recently. They brought a new front wing to Silverstone, but the track just didn't really seem to allow them to exploit it. On the other hand, they have a new floor coming at Spa, so maybe we should wait an extra race before we expect to see them back in there. But they were just about on the fringes of the battle ahead of them, and then McLaren have completely leapfrogged them. So they really do need to up their game, because they've gone from a team boasting about how they're hoping to finish fourth in the championship, closer to the traditional top three, and now they've dropped sixth in the championship. So yeah, they really do need to make sure they get some points on the board over the next 2 rounds going into the summer break.
I'm jumping the gun on predictions just a little bit, but of Aston, Ferrari, and Mercedes, who do you think comes away with the most points in Hungary, driver and team? So Laurence, you go first, then you, Nate.
I'm going to trust in what Aston Martin was saying to the press in Silverstone, and say Aston Martin come away. That is dependent on Lance Stroll performing, which we know recently
I was going to make that point.
He's been underperforming, but I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt as well. So I'm going to say Aston Martin, but of those two drivers, Fernando Alonso is the one that's going to get more points.
Yeah, for the Lance Stroll reason, I'm going to give it to Mercedes. I think they've got two more consistent drivers there. But I do agree. I think on raw pace, Aston should be back up there. And it would be baffling if they're not, because that would be a massive fall from grace that we haven't really seen that before in Formula One. Well, we've seen it before, but not for a long time in Formula One. A team kind of dropping down the pecking order so much, and this battle for second, I'm actually really, the more you think about it, the more entertaining it is. It's obviously a shame it's not for first, but week to week it is changing so much, and it is genuinely very difficult to sometimes. I mean, Silverstone, we were something like, well, okay, so the McLaren we saw in Austria is legit, it's legit on both cars. So I'd put Mercedes, Aston, and then Ferrari and McLaren kind of fighting somewhere below that. But for where McLaren was at the start of the season, I think it's a pretty big turnaround.
All right, prediction time. As it stands, Laurence is currently in the lead, followed by Nate, and then I bring up the rear in third. But that obviously is going to change because I picked up a couple of nice points in Silverstone. Predictions, Nate, get us started, please. Who's your top three?
So obviously Max in first, Fernando Alonso second, and I think it's about time we put Sergio Perez back in third position. I think it would be baffling to me if he didn't get on the podium with that pressure, and I think it's actually going to be a really good read of where Perez's kind of temperament is, mental strength, resilience, because I think, let's be honest, I don't think the pressure that we've all been putting him under, he he's obviously frustrated, but I think now that Ricciardo's there, it's a whole other layer to that. So if he can have that clean weekend, there's no reason he shouldn't be on the podium. And as we said earlier, I think Aston will be back up there in that position they were in the start of the year. I don't think I've put Alonso on the podium for a little bit, so I'm backing him.
It's good to have you back.
Yeah, and I feel like my position in the standings has dropped off since I stopped backing Fernando, and he's also dropped off. So I feel like, if he's back, I'm just going to say Fernando's second all year.
Yeah, get your synergy back with him.
Yeah,
Laurence, who's your top three?
My top three. Well, last weekend for the British Grand Prix, I put Lewis Hamilton to win. I tried to go a little bit different, didn't work. So I'm going to go for the most boring prediction I can in the hope to cement my place at the top. Max Verstappen, Sergio Perez, Fernando Alonso. Red Bull updates work. No excuses for the Red Bull not to take a 1-2. It's remarkable they haven't taken more this year, actually. But anyway, yeah, so Red Bull 1-2 followed by Fernando Alonso. How boring is that?
Pretty boring.
A little bit more boring than my one. I put him.
Yeah.
So 2 Red Bulls up there.
And I sadly was going to go Max, Sergio, and then I was going to throw Lewis on there in third. I'm not buying the Aston Martin upgrades quite yet. I'll believe it when
Lewis is. I mean, there's a lot of circuits where Lewis is great, but Hungaroring, I'm pretty sure he often says is one of his favorite circuits. So it's not a bad shout at all.
Also, just sad that we've all written off McLaren so quickly after their triumph 2 weekends ago in Silverstone. But we shall see.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.